your English podcast.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're taking a look at a stack of sources today, digging into a topic that's relevant to so many of you, achieving English language fluency.
That's right. And we've gathered some material that presents a really interesting, maybe even a provocative take on language learning. It pushes back against some, traditional ideas.
Yeah, and the central claim that really jumps out from these sources is pretty bold, isn't it? They seem to argue that listening, that it's presented as potentially the only fundamental skill you need to truly become fluent.
Just listening, exactly.
It really challenges what I think many of us were taught in school or, through traditional methods.
It absolutely does. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack why. Why do these sources make such a singular claim? We want to understand the logic they present.
And then pull out the practical steps, right?
Okay,
What
yeah.
can you actually do based on these ideas to seriously boost your English?
Precisely. Extract those actionable takeaways.
Okay, let's get into it. So the sources argue listening isn't just a skill like reading or writing, but it's the foundation. How do they explain that? Why is listening so central, according to this material?
Well, what's fascinating here is the argument that listening provides the brain with the natural contextual input it needs,
Instead of just memorizing lists of words.
Exactly. Instead of memorizing rules or vocabulary in isolation, listening exposes you to language as it's actually used, the rhythm, the intonation, natural phrasing, vocabulary in a situation. And they suggest this constant input is what allows you to sort of internalize the language, building that essential base.
So it's less about conscious analysis, like diagramming sentences, and more like absorption. Is that the idea?
That's a great way to put it. Absorption. The sources propose that when you listen effectively, your brain is processing just immense amounts of data. How sounds connect, which words typically go together, the feel of natural speech.
Right.
And this whole process, they argue, naturally prepares you for speaking because you've already absorbed how the language should sound and flow. One source even mentions studies suggesting that focused listening actually activates the same brain areas used for speaking.
Okay, now that's where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
So speaking isn't a separate skill you have to consciously build first, but it's more of a result of all this listening input.
That's the core argument, yeah. The more high-quality, understandable listening input you get, the more material your brain has to work with when it comes time to actually produce language.
Like filling up a tank so you can eventually drive the car.
Exactly. You need the fuel first.
It sounds powerful, I like to say. But how do you actually do this effectively? What kind of listening practice are these sources recommending? It can't just be having the TV on in the background, right?
No, definitely not. That raises a really important point. The sources emphasize intentional, targeted listening, not passive background noise. They suggest dedicating specific, regular time, maybe even just 20 to 30 minutes daily to actively listen. And listen to content that's relevant to your goals or interests.
So choosing content you actually enjoy. That seems key.
Absolutely crucial. The sources are very clear on this. Consistency with interesting material is much more effective than forcing yourself through hours of boring stuff.
Makes sense.
Find topics, stories, podcasts, conversations you genuinely care about. That engagement makes the whole absorption process far more effective. You want to understand.
I remember they also talked about combining listening with other things, didn't they? Not just listening in isolation.
Yes, synergy. They really stress the power of combining skills to amplify the results. A prime example they give is using audiobooks while simultaneously reading the text.
Or using subtitles with videos, maybe?
Exactly. It links the sound of the word directly to its written form and its meaning, all within a natural context. It reinforces the connection.
And there were some other, maybe more creative techniques mentioned too, weren't there?
Yeah, the material included some neat ideas like recording short audio notes for yourself, maybe summarizing something you just heard, or practicing a new phrase out loud.
And then listening back to it.
Right. Listening back to your own voice, the act of using your voice reinforces the learning, and listening back helps you kind of self-correct, identify areas where maybe your pronunciation or phrasing isn't quite natural yet.
That's interesting. What else?
Another technique mentioned was creating fake interviews. Like, you ask yourself questions on a topic you've been listening about, and then you answer them aloud.
Okay.
It trains both your listening comprehension, understanding the implied question, and your speaking response, drawing on those patterns you've internalized from listening.
It seems like the really big takeaway from these sources is that consistent, targeted listening, focusing on engaging content, is the engine. That's what builds the foundation for fluency across the board.
Precisely. The message seems to be that regularity and your intention behind the listening matter much more than, say, long, difficult, but infrequent sessions.
Make it a daily habit focused on understanding.
Yep. Small, consistent steps.
So, okay, let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for you, the listener? We've unpacked this idea from the sources we looked at that listening is presented as this critical foundational skill for English fluency. The thing that potentially enables speaking, reading, and writing to develop more naturally.
And we've highlighted the methods they recommend, prioritizing that consistent daily listening. Combining audio with text where possible, like audiobooks or subtitles.
Using those techniques like audio notes or self-interviews.
And crucially, choosing content you actually find interesting. The emphasis is really firmly on intention and regularity over sheer volume or difficulty.
Right. So here's a final provocative thought for you to consider based on what these sources argue. If speaking fluency truly is mainly a natural result of effective targeted listening, does that fundamentally change how you think about your own learning journey?
And maybe more immediately. What's just one small targeted listening habit you could realistically start today based on these ideas? Something simple, maybe 15, 20 minutes, focused on something you enjoy.